Hello everyone and welcome to our today's lecture. In our today's lecture, we will see what is web browser and what is web server. Okay, so let's start our today's lecture. So our first topic is web browser. Now this term is very commonly used term and we all know what is web browser. But let's see the definition of web browser. So web browser is a client, program, software or tool through which we send HTTP requests to the web server. Okay, now let's explore the definition. If we want to access any resources over the internet, then to access that information we have to send the request to the server. Okay, so to type the request we use the web browser. So web browser will use HTTP protocol, and with the help of HTTP protocol, web browser will send our HTTP requests to the web server. Okay. Now the next point is, now what is the main purpose of this web browser? So the main purpose of this web browser is to locate the content or to locate the information on the World Wide Web. Okay, so what will web browser do? Web browser will simply locate or find the information that we type in address bar of the web browser. Okay, and after locating this information, it will display all this information in the shape of web page, image, audio or video. So depending on our request, which type of resources we want to access, web browser will display all these resources. Proper? So web browser uses different forms to show or to display our information. So our information may be in the form of web pages, images, audios, videos. Okay. So main purpose of web browser is to locate information and after locating display information. Okay. Now let's see example of this web browser. Now web browser is the part of our daily routine life. Okay. So Microsoft Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, Opera, Google Chrome, all these are the example of web browser and we all know and we all are using this web browser since many days. So all these web browser like Opera, Chrome, Safari, or we can say that early Microsoft Internet Explorer, all these are now the advanced web browser. Why it is advanced web browser? Because they are capable to understand HTML, JavaScript and Ajax. Okay. So now the modern web browser are capable to understand what is JavaScript or what is HTML, or they are capable to display the web pages that are created with the help of HTML, JavaScript and Ajax. So this is all the thing related to web browser. Now these are the example of some commonly known web browser. This is the symbol of Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Chrome, Opera, Safari. Okay. So this is some few examples of web browser. Now let's see our second topic, web server. So what is web server? So web server is a computer system. Okay, it is not one type of software, it is not a tool, it is not a program, but web server is a computer system which provides web pages via HTTP. Okay, so we can say that all the information or all the resources that we are accessing over the internet, all this information are stored in the web server. Okay, so the definition of web server is it is the computer system which provides the web pages with the help of HTTP protocol. Now it may be possible that many type of web server are available. Okay, so how to differentiate this web server or how to differentiate one web server with another web server? Okay, so IP addresses and the domain name is essential for every web server. Okay, so with the help of IP address or with the help of domain name, we can identify or differentiate one web server with another web server. Now, so if we want to know what are the main functions that web server do, okay, so we can define it as storing, processing and delivering the web pages to the client is its main purpose. Okay, so the main function of web server are, there are three different types of main functions that web server do. First function of web server is storing, second is processing and third is delivering. What web server will do? Web server will store all the contents. Okay, so whenever we want to access any resources, okay, Then we simply send the request with the help of web browser to web server. So after receiving our request, web server will process that request, and if that resources are available or stored on the web server, then it deliver that web pages or that resources back to the client. Okay. So storing, processing and delivering the web pages to the client are the main functions of web server. Okay, so how it works? Okay, so whenever we want to access any resources, then we simply type the web address or URL of the resources into our web browser. Then web browser sends our request to the web server, or we can also say that web address. Okay, where our domain name of where your domain name or your URL is already stored. Okay, means simply our request will go to the web server where our all resources are stored. So after receiving the request, web server will process our request, and or we can also say the server collects all our informations proper or all the informations proper of the web pages that we have requested, and after collecting this information, web server will send this all information to the web browser. And after receiving all this information, web browser will display this information. Okay, so we can see this information in the form of web pages. Okay, so this is the communication between web browser and web server. And now in days, lots of web servers are available in the market. So let's see some few example: Apache, Microsoft IIS, and Netscape Navigator. All these are the example of web server. Okay, there are many types of web server available, but these are some few examples. Okay, now this figure shows the communication between web browser and web server. Okay, so web browser is installed on a one PC, and that PC is known as the client PC. Okay, so this is the web browser. So if we want to access any information, then web server will store all this information. So to access this information, simply we type the address of that information. So browser send our request with the help of HTTP to the web server. So after receiving the request, server will process that request. If all the resources available within this server, then this server will send all this information as a response, and with the help of HTTP response message, our request our web server will send the response to the web browser. Web browser will collect this information and display in the form of web pages. Okay, so this is the complete communication between web browser and web server. Okay, now these are the questions that are commonly asked in G2 examination.